Ray Nitschke was often seen foaming at the mouth, ready to crush any player in his path. But he wasn't just one of the NFL's hardest hitters, he was also one of the best. I want to show that by taking a look at the 4 biggest moments in his career that show just how good he was. But before we get to that, we need to understand how important he was to the team. The 1960 Packers are one of, if not the greatest dynasty in NFL history.
During the 1960s, the Green Bay Packers won 5 world championships. The key to their dominance was defense, and the key to their defense was Ray Nitschke.
Well, eventually. Drafted in 1958, he arrived on a Packers team that would go 1-10-1 that season, with the worst rated offense and defense. But you can't blame Nitschke for that because he was stuck on the bench. Fortunately, Vince Lombardi was hired in 1959. He instantly turned the franchise around, as they improved to 7-5. But Nitschke remained a backup, he wasn't good enough yet. So how does he go from bench warmer to a Hall of Famer? He was relentless, scary, and tough. That can only be ignored for so long. He lost his front teeth in college, so without his dentures, he was stuck with this menacing scowl.
Lined up under the center, the first guy I looked at is Nitschke, and he's foaming at the mouth out there, and he's panting and moving back. And I said, this is the ugliest, meanest looking person I have ever seen.
It's funny because he was so nice off the field, yet when he was playing, he was terrifying. Like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, as Bart Starr said. But when he stepped onto the field...
It wasn't a Jekyll-Hyde presence, it was just Hyde. It was just total absence of any concern or compassion for another human being.
He turned into a foaming, wild-eyed madman. After all, this was a guy who survived a 1,000-pound steel tower collapsing on him. A bolt that was holding the steel together went right through his helmet and was inches away from his skull. Fortunately, he survived, because by 1960, Nitschke wasn't just one of the toughest players ever, he had also developed into a great football player and made it into the starting lineup. But just as he established himself on the team, he was called to the army in 1961. After splitting the starting role with Tom Bettis that season, he became a permanent fixture in 1962. The impact was immediate. An already great defense got even better, from 3rd in the NFL to 1st. If Bart Starr was the heart of the Packers offense, then Ray Nitschke was the heart of the defense. The team got even better in the playoffs, allowing just 12 points a game. That's the second best during that period. The Bears are first with 10 points a game, but they have just 1 appearance. The Packers were in 10 playoff games, the most of any team during that period. Nitschke was a big part of the playoff success. He was a big moment player. Take 1962, the first of those 4 big moments I mentioned at the start. Firstly, it was a historic season for the team. The Packers' point differential is still 6th best all time. They finished with a 13-1 record to face the Giants in the NFL Championship. So we're in the first quarter, 2nd and 9 at the Packers' 15-yard line. As Y.A. Tittle launches the ball into the end zone, Nitschke jumped up and got his fingers on the ball. It deflected high into the air, and teammate Dan Curry came down with the interception. Sam Huff would say this was the turning point of the game, despite the Packers being up just 3 points. Later in the second quarter, the Packers are still holding on to a 3-0 lead. The Giants have the ball at their 34-yard line. Phil King takes the handoff, but when Dan Curry meets him for the tackle, the ball came loose. Nitschke was right there to recover it. That set up the Packers' only touchdown score. Then in the third quarter, the Giants prepared to return a punt. Unfortunately, they whiffed on the catch. As players were scrambling for the ball, none other than Ray Nitschke emerged with it. The Packers would go on to score a field goal from that possession. With 3 huge plays, 2 leading to Packers scores, Nitschke was selected as the player who did the most to bring the championship to his club. He won the MVP. Even back then, offensive players were favoured for MVP awards. He was the first of just 2 defenders to win the championship MVP, and if you look at the Super Bowl, it's the same story. Only 10 defenders have won the MVP. The Packers, with Nitschke leading the defense, were seen as unstoppable, and as long as Lombardi was there, it was true. Nitschke's next big game came in 1965. Again, this shouldn't be a surprise, the Packers had the number 1 rated defense. They won the NFL West Division and were set to face the Browns in the title game. Nitschke probably had the toughest assignment of his career, as he had to shadow the league's best rusher, Jim Brown. However, in the third quarter, he had to rush off the field in obvious pain. He thought he dislocated his shoulder.
And it appeared that Nitschke had damaged his left arm. We'll try and get a report on Ray Nitschke as soon as possible.
Unfortunately for Jim Brown, the pain did eventually subside. Later in the third quarter, the Packers are up 20-12. The Browns are at the Packers' 28-yard line. Frank Ryan lobs it into the end zone. Jim Brown has no problem getting past Nitschke and catches the ball. However, thanks to the weather and Ray Nitschke, who lunged at the last moment and got his fingertips on the ball, Brown couldn't hang on. A touchdown would have brought the score within 1. Instead, they were forced to settle for a field goal. But the Packers tackle Henry Jordan blocked the kick. Jordan would give some credit to Nitschke, who was pulling on a guard, which opened a gap for Jordan. In large part thanks to Nitschke, the Packers held the Jim Brown to just 50 rushing yards. Brown himself said, "Nitschke seems to know where I'm going before I do." With that, the Packers won 23-12. The following year, in 1966, the Packers were back, this time for the first Super Bowl, or AFL-NFL World Championship game as it was first called. Thank God they changed that name. The NFL was viewed as the superior league, so the Packers were under serious pressure to prove it. But after the first half, they led by just 4 points. The Chiefs had more first downs and passing yards, and both quarterbacks looked pretty equal. So when the Chiefs received the kickoff in the second half, they were quietly confident. On their first possession at the 47-yard line, on 3rd and 5, Dawson gets swarmed by 3 Packers defenders. The ball wobbles in the air, and Packers safety Willie Wood intercepts it, returning it to the 5-yard line. They would score on the next play, and now with the Chiefs down 11 points, momentum began to shift. You can see that by the difference in first and second half stats. The offense would seal the show, but it was the defense who broke the game open for the Packers. Nitschke wasn't involved on that specific play, but he had a massive impact, and he finished with 6 tackles and a sack. But entering the 1967 season, some of the veterans were getting old. The offense was struggling. It didn't help that they lost Bart Starr to injuries for week 4 and 5. After losing to the Vikings, there were some doubters.
And then there was a great attack upon us by the press media that we were all old, that we were over the hill, that the Packers are all old men. And a number of articles about the old Green Bay Packers. They're too old, they're over the hill, over the hump, a number of other things. We were a little mad, not particularly at the Giants, but at the newspaper people more so than anybody else, and we had a little something to prove. They inspired us. They gave us a reason to play.
Well, from 17.4 points in the first 5 weeks to 27.2 points in the final 9, the offense had sent a message. Yet it was the defense that carried the load during the early slump.
Through the first part of the season, the defense kept Green Bay's title hopes alive. And throughout the remainder of the year, it would be the determining factor in the Packers' success.
The Packers went on to win the Central Division, beat the Rams in the first round of the playoffs, only to host the Cowboys in what would be the coldest game in NFL history. Nitschke really shined. Not just for his play though. Despite the brutal, negative 13 Fahrenheit conditions, he refused to stand by the heaters. That did result in frostbite though. Then on one play, Nitschke felt Dallas tight end Frank Clark got too close to him. Frothing at the mouth, Ray screamed, "Get away from me, you son of a I'll break your neck." Clark thought, what in the world is with this guy? He is really strange. Strange is a real polite way to put it. But that intensity was amplified due to the Packers' situation. They were going for the three-peat. After narrowly beating the Cowboys, they now had an 8-1 playoff record under Lombardi. Negative 13 degrees, you say. As Nitschke said, he taught us how to win under any conditions. So there they were, Super Bowl II, their 3rd championship appearance in 3 years. If you look at some of these stats, it seems to be more of a balanced game than Super Bowl I. Well, the Packers won 33-14. What really did it for them was experience. This was the Packers' 5th title game, whereas it was the Raiders' 1st, and turnovers. Nitschke set the tone early, as he flipped the Raiders fullback up into the air on the first play of the game. And with his great lateral speed, even the Raiders coach admitted, he stuffed the Raiders' sweep runs, frequently shooting through the gap just like this. He finished with 6 solo tackles and 9 total. With the three-peat complete, Lombardi retired, and the Packers collapsed. By 1971, the head coach wanted to move on from the veterans of the Lombardi era, so Nitschke was replaced for Jim Carter, despite the crowds chanting, "We want Nitschke." He had ended his career just like he started it, on the bench. He'd retire the following season, leaving behind an all-time great legacy.